going on, everybody? It's Jeff Grammer with the ABQJournal, and I am joined by a very, very dark, underlit, not in the studio, Sean Ryder, who is making a mad dash around Phoenix right now. He has to go pick up some luggage and then get over to the airport and hopefully make a flight home tonight because he says he has more football to cover tomorrow. He's got a New Mexico Bowl game to cover. So, Sean Ryder, what are you doing in Phoenix, man? Why don't you give us the quick rundown as best you can from the backseat of a wonderful Uber?
Yeah, I'm in the Uber right now. Just left the Rape Bowl. Obviously, New Mexico loses a heartbreaker, 2017 in Minnesota in overtime. That's about as dejected and oppressor I've ever seen Jason Eck at really any point. I mean, that one clearly stung. See it on all the players' faces and all that as well. And I don't want to say. I'll say this: a really good defensive effort in a lot of ways. I think from New Mexico in a lot of respects. There were some things that they didn't match up well with there on that end that I think they were able to kind of power through and do all that. Not an awesome day for the offense by any respects. I mean, only 6 points. Only 6 points of true offense in regulation, if I remember correctly. We're trailing down, 14-6 in the fourth quarter before Damon Bankston, really just uncorked that momentum shifting 100-yard kickoff return TD. He is the first Lobo, I believe, in program history to have 2 100-plus yard kickoff returns in the season. But I don't know. I don't know whether to say. I think this was a disappointing finish for people, but at the same time, I do think Eck is kind of right when he said in the locker room his message was, don't hang your heads low, don't do anything like that because they were going up against a Big Ten team and they took them to overtime, took them to the wire, and really, I think the difference to me in a lot of respects is just they needed to. They needed a touchdown when you need to score a touchdown when you have it, first and goal, at the 1 and a little bit closer than the 1 from what I kind of saw in that one too. And then I asked Zach that 4th and 7 in the second quarter, the 4th and 3. They got that 4th and 7 like 6 plays earlier. I asked them why they didn't go for the 4th and 3. I know some fans were kind of confused by that. I was a little bit confused in the moment. He said that 4th and 7 was kind of more, that's in kind of like a no man's land at midfield. And that's kind of a call that they're always going to usually go for. That one, they felt, the 4th and 3, felt just want to get the points there and take care of that.
I'll ask you a couple questions, answer as best you can on a couple things that I think a lot of people were wondering about throughout the game. First, how about Jackson Eck defensively? What was going on with Jackson Eck not playing a whole lot of snaps in that second half?
Yeah, I think we were all able to kind of guess it, at least on like Twitter during the flow of the game. He had a shoulder injury, was trying to play through it, and then they just kind of shut him down with that. He came back in, I believe, but the only play was on that fake punt, that 4th and 2 that just got blown up by Anthony Smith. And I believe that was the only play he got back in on. So that confirmed it was a shoulder injury. He said he didn't think that it made that big of a difference in the flow of the game, but certainly X, one of the, he's a Mountain West Co-Defensive Player of the Year. It's always a guy you want on the field. So I think there was some sort of impact there.
What about Jack Lane? Jack Lane did not exactly light it up again in the second half. And now a lot of that, I think, had to do with that pass rush. I thought Smith was tremendous for Minnesota. I think he'll be in the NFL. I also think that when he was throwing, Jack Lane didn't look particularly sharp. Was there anything wrong with Jack Lane today, or is it just a byproduct of all that defense that Minnesota was able to get rolling in that second half?
So there was no indication that, some people asked, was he hurt? Was he dealing with something there? There was no indication on our end that was really the case, but it was a little weird. In the first half, it was more of a thing where you saw him kind of miss some throws, and he really missed them. But at the same time, he was like 9 for 12 passing at one point. Well, he's missing those throws. And you're like, well, the statistical reality maybe isn't meshing the same way with what you're seeing on the field and all that. And then in the second half, I think he only completed 2 passes out of like 9 attempts and all that as well. I asked Deck about that, what kind of went wrong in that regard. He said they covered really, really well. Played him in man coverage, and he said he knew that was going to be a weakness in this game for UNM's receivers and all that, pass catchers, and that really showed out in the second half in a lot of respects. And of course, you're 100% right too, and that kind of shouted out as well. That pass rush was hellacious. I mean, Smith, as Eck kind of said, is a load inside. I thought 11. I'm blanking on his name right now because I don't have everything in front of me. I thought he did some nice things as well. But, Yeah, that's a Minnesota team that finished, I believe, second in the Big Ten in sacks this season. Man, I mean, they can get after the passer if they want to.
K Men's. Carter Men's was the number 11. All right, so I think some people, and I've seen it on social already, kind of pointing to they thought the play calling, they thought maybe the quarterback play, but they also thought the play calling. The announcers didn't seem as well versed in Jason X, I guess, background of trick plays and going for it as often as he has. Now he went for a lot more today than he did. He was taking risks that were even more a lot for him, but they weren't moving the ball. Do you question in any way? Did he regret in any way the aggression he took on some of those trick plays, particularly that punt?
He shouted that out. He said that there were absolutely some chances that they took that just completely backfired. I mean, that was kind of the word that he used, backfire. Just kind of blew up in their faces. I mean, you know, I didn't hate some of the trick plays. I really didn't like the fake punt. I thought you would even be better if you just went for it in that spot, frankly, as opposed to doing what they kind of did. That seemed like that was telegraphed, to Minnesota that it was going to be a. But yeah, I think it was a mix of, this is this is what UNM is under Eck. This is what he will do. But I do think, and he kind of indicated, I think there was some real regret on Eck's part, especially with how well the defense was kind of playing at points and how they kind of, how they kind of bailed the offense out in a lot of respects. Not enough for a win, but yeah.
I will to what you just spoke to a little bit telegraphed on the fake punt. You were in the press box. You didn't see what we saw on TV, but PJ Fleck was yelling fake, 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 and either he got a read on it or the fact that it was at midfield and UNM wasn't going to gain a ton by punting anyway. PJ Fleck was on that before the play ran. He was yelling fake, fake, fake. So it is what it is. I'll read a couple comments to you here. Richie's in. So our guy Richie, even on the bowl game, is in. Richie saying my heart is ripped, but goddamn, is next season going to be hyped?
Yeah, Ed kind of spoke to that in the presser, and he kind of said, he said he believes they're on a collision course for a Mountain West title, and if you get better, UNM, if you get better in the areas that you need to kind of get better in, which I think is, you're going to have to replace guys, first off, you're going to have to replace guys, in the secondary, particularly with corners, figure all that out. You're probably going to have to add more there. You're going to have to add edge rushers and make that happen. You're losing Keyshawn James Newby for sure. You're probably going to lose Brett Carhu unless he files a lawsuit and all that as well to get another year of eligibility. I don't have an update on that right now, but, if you can replenish and get better in a lot of the respects in terms of, making sure that, it's a better receiving team than it was last year. You have more options there, more reliable options. And yeah, I think in a, it's no offense to other Mountain West schools, but in a weaker Mountain West than it was this year, I believe this league next year will be, it's going to be weaker with San Diego State, with Boise State, with Utah State, with Fresno State, and with Colorado State all leaving. I think UNM is still in a good spot in a lot of respects, but this is kind of, if UNM won and they got that 10th game and all that as well, we probably wouldn't be spinning into, full off-season mode so quickly. But, you lose in the bowl game and, that kind of becomes something that becomes a more relevant talking point, I should say.
Richie's also pointing out this is going to make everyone hungrier next year. It's what you just spoke to a little bit. Joshua Abate just says pain, one word comment. John Romero's in, excuse me, John Romero's in on YouTube. Great Lobo season, great team, great journal media. The Lobo faithful sure showed up this season. Thankful for fans. Gigi and Sean, much appreciated your expertise and service. I will, we won't make this show about this show or anything, but this was a fun season to have this show and you guys participating in it, and it is something that obviously is going to stick around in some fashion moving forward, both with a weekly show, basketball pregame, football postgame, all that kind of stuff. So thank you guys all for that. We got Brooke on X asking, can someone finally confirm if Lane has been playing with an injury to his throwing, just as to his throwing, I assume arm is what he means here, the last few games. I heard rumors around the program, but no one will confirm. You kind of spoke to that already. Have there been rumblings? I don't know why there'd be rumblings without confirmation, but have there been any rumblings about Jack having played hurt for several games now.
Not that I'm really hearing it, but like you do have to remember though, like Lane is a guy that sat out all of spring with that elbow injury and all that as well. Just didn't feel right, and they shut him down, and he missed all of spring practice because of that. He said he got to a good level. When he's got to a playable level and a good level, obviously, he said he felt like pretty good at the start of fall camp, but he did mention at the start of fall camp, we haven't really talked about it much since because things were fine in a lot of respects. You didn't have to kind of look at it that way at the time, that, it is something in the back of your head, that kind of elbow injury, that UCL or whatever. So I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of rumblings. I don't think we were talking about, frankly, over the course of the 6-game win streak about, oh my gosh, is Lane hurt and all that as well. I do think, though, it wasn't a question I truly asked today. I probably could have stood to have asked it, but it's not something I've heard a lot about. I think he just missed some throws today and was kind of out of sync how Minnesota was covering and how the pass rush looked against him.
As shown on the screen right now, for those that can see it, those who aren't on a phone in a car can probably see the stats right now. Jack Lane did complete 14 of 25 passes, 88 yards, 1 interception. Not stellar by any stretch. I don't think anyone is going to suggest those were stellar numbers by him, but it is what it is. This game certainly took on an identity, and UNM gave itself an opportunity to win, and that alone is something that should be remembered about this game. Is they found a way to force overtime, and it was a remarkable catch that really created this game, or actually led to this game ending as opposed to a second overtime. It really was. I thought it was well defended and just a different angle in the end zone. And maybe we're talking about a double overtime just like it was 2 weeks ago or a few weeks ago with San Diego State. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Lobo Leroy's in on X. How little do they trust Lobstein's arm? I feel like they could have gotten a lot more out of his runs if the defense had to had the pass to think about. I do think that's something worth, exploring in the offseason too, is if you're going to have that secondary quarterback be the run option, at what point does he have to – I was just going to say, at what point does that secondary run option quarterback have to be a passing threat in any way?
Exactly, right. And look, like Lobstein did throw a TD this year. He has completed passes and all that. It wasn't all that long ago where it was the Boise game, and we were on the live and people were talking like, man, like Lobstein looked really good running the offense and all that. Like he can do it. I did think there was at least one play today in the red zone where I thought he probably should have passed it. I know there was some gripes as well about again, going back to it, you have 1st and goal at the 1 and you can't get it in, and I don't think that was a pass play on that first down play with Lobstein that Minnesota frankly just blew up for a loss of 6. I mean, they were all over that. I think he was going to run that one, but no, I mean, it's a question of me, how they kind of evaluate that and work out those tendencies. But Lobstein is a guy as well, though, that I think he will need legal intervention to come back. And I'm curious if they do fill, if he doesn't come back, if they do fill that role with Toafade and all that kind of stuff as well. Keep that element of a guy who comes in as, more of a run-first quarterback and can pick up those tough yards for you.
And let's not forget they have picked up not only do they have a young quarterback already on the team, they've picked up some recruiting commitments, stuff like that, stuff that will be addressed more in the offseason and in spring ball, stuff like that. I also want to remind people, like, let's not forget where Devin Dampier started. He was not the passing quarterback. He was a pretty much a run-only threat when he started. The path to being a full-time multi-use quarterback or complete quarterback is sometimes at the college level. It does start like that, and we'll see if they like doing that with the young quarterback next year. If they bring in, we'll see what the quarterback situation obviously is going to be next year. I did want to say this. You again, not having heard this because you weren't listening to or watching the broadcast, but quote, "This place is loud. This is supposed to be a neutral site game, but these Lobo fans have come out in droves and they are loud and proud." That's Kirk Morrison, former San Diego State Aztec, who was the ESPN color analyst on this game. And for those that don't know, the announced attendance on this game, 27,439. Sean, you were there. What was the percentage roughly? I'm hearing, if you're just talking the fans that were in colors, like you could tell Minnesota fan versus New Mexico fan, not a neutral fan. If you're just looking at the two teams, are we talking 60-40 New Mexico?
Can you hear me now? You broke
Yeah,
up
I
a
can
little
hear
bit.
you. Are we talking 60-40 New
Okay, yeah.
Mexico
No,
fans
I
there today?
tweeted out, pregame. Oh, you got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Yeah, I even tweeted out pregame that, I thought there was some more Minnesota fans than New Mexico fans, but not by a lot. But Minnesota, New Mexico, there was a lot of them. They filled out really, really well. They made my take look terrible. And I was told the Rate Bowl doesn't usually open that upper deck. I don't know how much they showed on the broadcast. There's a lot of Lobo fans up there. A
Yeah.
lot of Lobo fans up in the upper deck at Chase Field. And I think Minnesota, in the end of the game, they let up that, the big roar, like, hey, got the dub and all that as well, walk-off TD. New Mexico, far and away for pretty much the entirety of that game was the more engaged fan base, the louder fan base. It actually felt like a bit of an advantage in some ways for New Mexico when Minnesota was driving down that side of the field. I mean, they were absolutely lit up. I still think the loudest thing we heard today was, the crowd, obviously, after Demond Bankston's TD. It got legitimately loud, like truly. New Mexico, I think, absolutely credit to Lobo fans that came out, made themselves heard.
I will point out, and I posted this on social during the game. This is the highest attended bowl game so far for any bowl game that has included a Mountain West team. The LA Bowl with Boise State and Washington, which is for the conference champion, had an announced attendance of 23,000. And this is because New Mexico fans were able to hop in a car and drive over there, an awful lot of them. And there'll be some postmortem kind of not recovery, some recapping of the business side of this on the tickets and all that. I do think there were there were more than 6,000 Lobo fans there. But I will tell you right now, not all Lobo fans bought their tickets through UNM, and I think UNM is going to be on the hook for paying the bowl back some money for those tickets, which is kind of crazy to think that if they had more than 10,000 Lobo fans there, or if they had 10,000 Lobo fans there, that they're going to have to pay back some allotment stuff. But that's all logistic stuff. They need to probably figure out a better way to sell the tickets from their allotment as opposed to so many Lobo fans going to SeatGeek and third party venues to do that. That's another story, another topic, another time. Travis is in on YouTube, and Travis is saying, thought Keegan had a really good game. Too bad they couldn't connect with him more in the second half. I would agree with that. That second half is sort of what you said.
I thought his 4th and 7 catch was really good in a lot of respects. That was a really good catch. And that's a guy, again, that's a guy that they really need to find a way to replace because, obviously that's his last game as a Lobo. And I thought he was the most dynamic guy, in that receiver room from pretty much the start of the season and really fall camp when he finally got cleared to pretty much, the end of the year. That's a difference maker that they need to replace.
I would agree. Lobo Leroy is back in on X not saying Lobstein didn't do great work on the ground. That's in reply to his previous comment that he obviously couldn't throw or they didn't trust his arm. He was great on the ground.
Yeah, it was a comment I made. And look, I'm not in the film room like Minnesota in the sense of breaking down tendencies and ODK and all that stuff as well, formational stuff and everything as well. I do think it was interesting that Fleck did note at one point in one of the pressers leading into the game, he said UNM does a really good job kind of disguising tendencies and you never really get a good beat on them. And I think, if you're an average fan in some ways, like you look and it's, you constantly see the same thing with Lobstein kind of, running the, on those run plays and stuff like that, sometimes just running up the middle and all that as well. But no, I do think it's kind of interesting to kind of pair those realities and all that as well. But certainly, if he's not able to come back, I do think Lobstein is a guy that, kind of had a really, kind of a, for a guy that didn't win the starting job, kind of had as good of a senior season as you could kind of ask for, frankly, in terms of, carving out his own role on the team and really thriving within that role, man, and becoming a bit of a fan favorite.
There's not much you can do as a backup quarterback if you're not the starter to carve out an imprint like you did, and he did. All right, Desert Lobo 72 is in on YouTube. Did at least 10,000 fans show up? I don't know. If you're ballparking it, if you know that 27,000 is the announced crowd, would you say that a third of that, or half of that, was New Mexico?
Yeah, I would, over half. I counted every single one of them. It was actually 9,987, so just missed. Okay. I didn't count that. Grammar, give me 1 second. I'm going to mute myself.
All right, Desert Lobo is in great game, but offense was up to the level the defense played at. I would say I would say that the offense was it was certainly one of the worst offensive games, but in terms of production, like overall production, but like man, it's hard not to point out that Minnesota's defense looked really good. I would also say that the Minnesota defensive line and offensive line in that second half, they kind of figured out at halftime, right? Minnesota did that they were gonna do what a Big Ten team should do against a Mountain West team and just lean on them, just beat them up in the trenches and the defensive line got pressured the entire second half, and the Minnesota offensive line pretty much ran the ball downhill the rest of the whole second half. And I think at halftime they came to a realization, kind of come to Jesus moment, like, what are we doing? Like, we're the Big Ten team. We should be running. We should be killing them in the trenches. And in the second half, I wouldn't say killing them, but it was UNM got outplayed in the trenches in the second half by a bigger, more physical Big Ten team, and yet again they still found a way to give themselves a chance. What's the deal now, Sean? You back at the hotel?
I'm back in the Uber.
Back in the Uber? You already got your luggage?
Yeah, we already got it.
Look at you, man. All right, so I was just talking about, I don't know how much you heard me rambling, but I just thinking that at halftime, Minnesota seemed to have sort of a come to Jesus moment with itself, saying, we're the Big Ten team. Like, what are we doing? Let's just run downhill, go straight at them, and have our bigger physical offensive line punish them. And on defense, the defensive line really took over in the second half and was pressuring them. It seems like they kind of came to a realization at halftime that they just needed to be the Big Ten team against the Mountain West team and be more physical in the trenches.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. And it really kind of looked like that. I wouldn't say this is a true kind of, sports writer cliche, tale of two halves kind of deal. UNM was leading, 6-0 in that first half for, nice little chunk there, but it wasn't like they were kind of dominating that game. If anything, you kind of felt early on that they were teetering a bit. And, Minnesota, I think come to Jesus moment is a good way to kind of phrase that. Hey, we're bigger. We have all Big Ten players, on the defensive line, Anthony Smith, and we have, guys in the back end that can cover really well and do good things there. So, and yeah, I mean, frankly, like that O-line too, like when I was, on the pregame, on the field pregame and all that, I was looking at that. I'm like, that's a big O-line, man. They are very big.
No.
You knew that, but, it's always different when you kind of see it in person and see, just how imposing that is. So I would say, I think that's a great read of, hey, they, I don't want to say they maybe played with their food, but, they kind of kicked it into a higher gear in the second half. And UNM was still able to do some things to stop them and give them trouble. So,
Global Leroy is in on X and wants to know, was that game not weirdly chippy? Said it seemed like both sides and both sidelines rather were getting pretty heated about no calls at certain points too.
that was something I noticed a little bit too. Just even from the press box, not even on the broadcast, that I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know if I would jump to like chippy truly is kind of the word I would use there, but that was something I did notice and find interesting, Leroy.
Reworded, and I apologize for butchering this because I think I knew what you meant. Desert Lobo 72 is saying great game, but offense did not play up to the level or intensity of the defense, or that the defense played at. And I knew that's what you meant, and I didn't read it as such earlier. But I would agree with that. I don't know if it was a lack of intensity, but they just didn't. I don't know if they were shell shocked or what, but like they didn't know what to do with that pass rush there in the second half. It seemed like so.
No, they did not have a lot of answers for that. I mean, that was and struggling to obviously throw downfield. It's kind of a a vicious cycle of you're not going to throw it well when you have that pass rush bearing down on you, but that pass rush is going to keep coming. When you're not throwing it well. So
we got one Susie Ryder and saying we miss you, Sean.
Miss you too, Mom.
I was gonna just sit there and pause until you responded. Yankees Jets saying I was wrong about you, bro. Lobos for life. I'm not sure who that is. But I don't know. Nicholas is in on YouTube. First down at the 1 yard line, we needed to just punch it in and not run away or run any fancy plays that led to a 5 yard loss.
I don't know if that was the fanciest play on the first down where they lost like 6 or whatever. I mean, they just didn't give it to Bankston. I think it was Lobstein's option to just run it out at that point. I don't know if that's terribly fancy. But yeah, look, you're a team that I will concede though, like you're a team that prides itself in running the football, like and all that. And you do run a good deal of power football. That mesh of mid zone football in the run game, power football, and you got to dial up power and just kind of make it happen at that point, man. I mean, it looked like less than a yard, and all of a sudden it's a missed opportunity that we're talking about right now. That could have been something that really swung that game if they got that.
Joshua's in quarterback situation this spring will be very interesting. A lot of people high on Cade's ability. Is it Cade? How does he say his last name?
Joshua Bonte?
No. Is it Cade? The quarterback situation. Who are the quarterbacks battling in the spring?
Oh, it was James Lobstein. James Lobstein, Gabriel. You're talking this last spring.
No. This coming spring, who's going to be battling for quarterback?
Okay. All right, I'm confused. So obviously Jack Land, right? Jack Land's coming back. Cade Mitchell, out of Beaverton, Oregon, is going to be an early enroll, 3-star prospect. He's a guy that a lot of people feel very good about. So he's going to be coming in. He'll be in the mix there. Toa Fabe also as well. And then Cole Welliver is a guy that we've talked about previously. We haven't talked about a ton over the last, couple months and all that. He's a guy, UConn transfer, big dude. To me, he's got the best arm on the team. He can make a lot of throws. I think Welliver is a guy that I don't know if he's going to, I don't know if it's going to be a true competition in the sense of, guys compete with each other and all that, but he has gotten a lot better over the last couple months in practice and all that. You can see that, and he's got his arm talent is absolutely electric. So
yeah, and Josh was just saying he thinks this coming spring it's going to be that way. I forgot Cade's last name. That's all I was saying. I couldn't remember Cade's last name. So and he says I hope Jack develops to be a true field general out there. I don't see Jack Lane losing this job under Jason Eck. I just don't.
I don't either, and I think and shout out Josh, by the way. We were hanging out in DTW last night, Detroit Airport. Josh, great dude. But no, I think he is a field general in some respects. It's just like, that's why he's kind of has the job. I do think it's just kind of like you're just a little bit more on his end would go a long way towards, just needs to be a little bit more in terms of, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's been a day.
We got another Lobos had a wonderful season. The offense didn't play up to the defensive level over the whole game. Penalties were awful on both sides. How do you line up offside so many times? I will say, I think the neutral zone call, if you're going to call that, and it was the right call, but if you're going to call that in that situation on UNM, I think it's fair for Lobo fans to be a little nitpicky about a couple non-calls that Minnesota had in that overtime and late in the game, including a neutral zone, an offensive player lining up in the neutral zone and stuff like that. I think they're all nitpicky. But if you're going to call one, then you've decided we're calling this really, really close. So I think in that situation, if you make a call as an official, and if you're going to do it, you better do it. And that's why I hate when fans get really nitpicky about stuff like that. But in this case, one team got a nitpicky call against them at a really crucial time, whereas another team did not. Did Minnesota try to intimidate New Mexico?
I don't know if I really saw that in terms of guys like pregame and all that, walking up and purposely bumping them and doing all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I don't know if I really saw that, but.
John Romero's in on YouTube. The holding penalty on Lobstein's long run was extremely questionable / suspect, and was a killer that cost us likely 4 points.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a great call. Will Weber and I were in the press box, and we did not love that holding call. Kind of felt it could have gone the other way in a couple respects, honestly. But yeah, it wasn't an awesome call in a game where there weren't a ton of, that wasn't filled with awesome calls all around. But I don't think that one definitely hurt. But I don't think this is a game you can really blame on on officiating truly.
No, what the frustrating part in such a close game.
I mean, they were at first and goal at the 1. You got to pop it in there.
Yeah, the frustrating part is in a game that was so close and could have been decided by just this or that. it's hard not to look back on some things that could have changed the game. But the reality is, don't forget to look back on the things like you just said that UNM did that could have changed the game, and not just what the officials did. I will point out too, I did not announce it at the beginning. We have the logo up there, so you guys do it, but a whole lot of appreciation. In case some of you may not know this, but Sandia Sportsbook is now sponsoring not only this live show, our weekly show as well. My pregame basketball shows are most of our sports podcasts now are all sponsored by Sandia Sportsbook. So much appreciation to Sandia for doing that and for helping us continue doing shows like this. I will now make my pitch, as much as you guys may hate hearing it by now, but abqjournal.com/subscribe is where you can go to help support local journalism, which isn't just a print product, isn't just a newspaper every day. It's not just a website with stories on it. It is shows like this as well. It is Sean sitting in an Uber right now and traveling to Phoenix to cover bowl games. Resources like that, they come from people like you subscribing and supporting local journalism, from sponsors like Sandia Sportsbook. Thank you guys for being a part of that. Let's get back to your guys' comments now. That is my that's my commercial.
Grammer, we do have one quick thing. Christopher, the Uber driver, has a pick he wants to give away right now. Christopher, what do you got?
I got Penn State money line over Clemson tomorrow.
Penn State money line over Clemson. Book it. Please bet responsibly. That is the play.
Tell me your name again, Chris.
Shout out Christopher, the Uber driver.
Chris, the Uber driver in Phoenix, Penn State money line. Do it. You said money line, right?
Money line, but please bet responsibly. However, please, we have to condone that. But
bet as responsibly as you guys want. I'm telling you, man.
Back pocket, he's adding that.
Chris has never led me astray with his picks. So shout out to Chris giving us picks in the car. Chris, the Uber driver, much appreciation for putting up with us doing this also in your Uber. All right. Lobo Leroy. Lobo Leroy's back in on X. Does UNM need to import more Northeast cats? Lobstein's Connecticut grit was able to drive the offense when nothing else was working. I feel the Lobos thrive off under-recruited guys, and the Northeast is probably the most under-recruited region in the country. There's a lot there to unpack.
That's not something that Eck kind of talked about in the presser, like one-on-one. Like, we got to, James Lobstein is a guy that we can use as an example when we're recruiting in Connecticut or whatever, or in Greenwich or something like that. But he did talk about that. He's like, a lot of our seniors are guys that we can use as examples in recruiting. Like you have Luke Drzwicki, who was a walk-on, ended up having the best, season of his career and getting put on scholarship, under Eck and company. Keegan Johnson, who had a nice featured role after going down a level, and really kind of performed. Keyshawn James newbie. Like, they mentioned that this senior class in particular is, it should only help recruiting in the sense of, being able to use those guys as examples. And Lobstein, I think, is one of those guys. It would be pretty hilarious if they just started hitting like New England super hard, like just getting after it there. So
Richie's in saying quarterback competition is going to be at least interesting this coming spring? Question mark.
I'll side with Jeff here, and I think it's too early to really even have that. Like, I do have a hard time seeing Lane, being a guy that, that is not kind of the quarterback under Eck. And certainly if he starts, next season and he's throwing like, just all over the place, things are not going well and all that, like, turning it over way too much, then like you look at it then. But I think it's far too early to say, there is going to be, Jack's job is kind of at risk or all that.
I would say this of as little as I know about Jack, and you know him far better, obviously, Sean. He's competitive as hell, and he's going to want to start. I also think, he is, they mentioned on the broadcast, he's a guy that wants to be a coach one day. His offensive coordinator talks about him watching more film than he does. Like, he gets the game, and I don't think he is unaware that if there's another quarterback that he believes would give them a better chance, I don't think Jack's going to be a problem if somebody wins out that job. But I do think it's a situation where they better win out the job. It better not be close. Anything close, they're going to stick with Jack. So you better beat out Jack Lane to get that quarterback position. All right, Ben is in on YouTube. Ben Wysong, our friend. Great season and one to remember for the players and the fans. Already looking forward to seeing these guys back to work in the spring, especially Evan. And that's right. We got another Wysong ready to play next year for the Lobos.
Evan will be back, and yeah, no, I'm curious to watch Evan, and he's finally healthy, this spring and all that as well. It's a guy definitely circled on my list that I want to see.
Richie's in on YouTube. I'm still hoping for some Grizzlies and playmakers this coming season.
Full like Montana Grizzlies.
That's what he's saying. Grizzlies. I'm hoping for some Grizzlies and playmakers this coming season.
Like Jaren Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what he wants. Jaren Jackson.
Okay.
All right. Travis is in on YouTube. Just have to say they went up 3 against the Big Ten teams this year and went toe-to-toe with all of them. Feel this is like this one got away though. And I think there's something to that. Like I think they probably giving themselves a position or a chance to win this game was a little bit of surprise because I think Minnesota looked like the better team in that second half. And the fact that UNM had a chance to win, and frankly, you could argue should have won in that final 2 minutes. They have the ball, I thought they really probably should have put themselves in a field goal position, but they didn't. That said, you go to overtime with Minnesota in a game that I felt Minnesota looked like the better team and more physical team. That there's still something to be said for this team's fight, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's a closer. Minnesota has won its last 9 bowl games, and it's 7-0 in bowl games under PJ Fleck, and this was a lot closer than some of those previous bowl games under Fleck. They definitely gave him a good run. So, no, I think that's a good way to look at it, Travis. You open to Michigan, and none of us really knew what this team was going to kind of look like and how they would pair up, and they end up playing really well against Michigan in a lot of respects. Beat the crap out of UCLA, and then close on this one, which did kind of get away from them in a lot of respects.
A lot of news breaking today while Sean was at the game. Michigan and Whittingham and Beck going to be his OC. The question here from Lobo Leroy is Dampier to Michigan possible if Underwood enters the portal? Obviously, a lot of speculation there, but what say you? I mean, I would say I'm guessing so, right? If they need a quarterback at Michigan, and they don't right now, they have Bryce Underwood, but if they need a quarterback, I would think there's a chance Devin Dampier would go.
I think there would be a chance to go. I do think Beck is a guy that should be. I don't know if Underwood will stay. I do think Beck, out of all the OCs they could have hired, will be a guy that Bryce Underwood should really listen to, because I think I think Beck could maximize a lot of what Bryce Underwood has shown that he can do well and take him maybe to another level. I think that would be very wise of Underwood to do, to listen to him. But no, that would be the funniest thing ever for me. Dampier going to Michigan and just running wild on a hapless Michigan State defense. That would be hilarious on my end. Yeah, drink. There we go.
Travis wants to know if Jack's brother is considering UNM.
I don't know for sure on that. Jack Lane's brother is in the transfer portal, linebacker from out of Idaho. Had a good season this last year. I don't know if he's considering him right now. Considering UNM at this point.
Nicholas wants to know already any news on Bankston, McKinney, Buchanan, Humphrey.
All were in attendance today. All were suited up. I believe Bankston. I believe this is his last game. I got to double check it, but I believe this was his final year of eligibility. And no word on McKinney, Buchanan, or Humphrey if they have made any decisions to enter the portal or do anything like that.
Yankees Jets 27 is in on YouTube saying Eck is the GOAT. Hell of a first season for Eck. There's no denying it. If someone at New Mexico can be considered and honestly considered for a national kind of honor for coaching, Eck was that guy this year. The turnaround they had. I don't know that I'm saying he deserved National Coach of the Year. I'm saying he earned a mention in that conversation, which is remarkable enough for UNM football. Ben Wysong is back in on YouTube. I wouldn't be surprised if Devin ends up at ASU if Underwood stays at Michigan, which is a hell of a sounds right to me kind of prediction for a guy kind of going home at a place that needs a quarterback. And yeah.
That would be really fun. I mean, that would be, Dylan Am working with Dampier. And yeah, Dev's a Chandler guy. So yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense.
All right, Sean. Sean, as you guys know, is not in his well-lit studio right now. He is in an Uber, and Chris has given him some money line picks for tomorrow, and we appreciate that. But we appreciate you guys as well. Sean, the plan is for you to be back for the New Mexico Bowl tomorrow. We're not going to do a New Mexico Bowl preview, but we will have a show sometime next week that we can kind of put as many loose ends to all this as we can. Anything you kind of want to wrap up with here as you were about to go catch a flight home?
I think, big picture, magnificent season, like in a lot of respects, the best season that UNM has had in a long, long time. I think all the other, the excitement around the program is warranted. I do think, big picture as well, I think today's game showed UNM where they kind of need to improve in some spots. And I think they already kind of knew about these things, but it's not that Minnesota exposed them with like a 56-0 shellacking or anything like that. But there were things, smaller things that UNM had kind of I kind of struggled with and was able to kind of get through because of how well the defense was playing down the stretch, and some other things were kind of covered up that kind of were brought back to the forefront today. So this is a team that is going to have high expectations next year. We're going to see what happens in the portal. That's something I kind of talked a little bit about today. Guys are going to enter the portal. It's something that happens. I'm curious to see what that looks like in terms of announcements soon, but no, I think all in all, it's kind of surreal to be doing this, signing off on this season for UNM football like this on the show. But I think it was a great season in a lot of respects, and that's kind of the obvious on my end. But we'll break down more of this game soon and kind of get into some of the news around the program. But I do want to remind you guys, Penn State over Clemson money line. Put that in.
Couple more shouts real quick just came in. Chad is in. Let's go, Grammar. How come Humphrey didn't play that much this season, and we need better quarterback play? Some stuff we've already touched on, Chad, but the Humphrey situation's another interesting one, man. It didn't go the way I thought it would.
No, and same here.
Last two in. Rich Green, LA. Thought we were loud and outnumbered Minnesota fans by 6-1 is Rich's prediction. Nicholas is saying, now we move towards men's basketball. I loved this football season. And finally, Richie is going to ask, and I will put you on the spot. Who do you got for the New Mexico Bowl, Sean? I know who Sean's got. I mean, his team away from home. I mean, they're not the nice green. You got a prediction for the New Mexico Bowl, Sean? He does not.
Christopher, the Uber driver, signed off with, I thought Minnesota was going to get, I thought New Mexico was going to get blown out. New Mexico put up a fight. I was unable to get that on the audio, but
there you go, Nation, Chris.
Christopher, the Uber driver, is behind you. He's backing
you. You guys made a believer in Chris, Lobos. And if that's not worth putting up on the season kind of bullet points, I don't know what is. So there we go. All right, Sean, you're walking through the airport. You got a few more steps before you get to TSA. What is next for Lobo football? Do they get a few days off? Do the coaches hit the recruiting trail? Are we in a dead period? I don't even know with the new calendar how December works anymore, man.
Yeah, I mean, guys are getting a day off, but look, the portal technically opens on January 2nd, but I do think some of the guys that probably will end up leaving, I think will be making a decision. We'll be announcing that sooner rather than later, as opposed to right on January 2nd and stuff like that too. And at that point, UNM is, I like Lane, but thought he was a little inconsistent and timid today. Yeah, I thought he was inconsistent from half to half. I agree with that, and there was definitely some missed throws. Minnesota was also finding ways to kind of put him in a blender. So, I do think I don't think it's as big of a question as kind of replacing guys on the edges and replacing guys in the secondary in terms of corners or getting another really solid number one receiver like Keegan Johnson. But I do think you could look at quarterback play as a question heading into next season. Although I don't think it's a huge one. I think it would be more in the sense of what is kind of the ceiling, right? With Lane if things aren't better around him.
Fair question here. This is worth kind of contemplating in the offseason. Are the Lobos the preseason favorite in the Mountain West?
Got to see the roster first. I mean, truly, and see who leaves and who decides to move on somewhere else. I would not put it. I don't have any intel to break or anything like that right now. But I do think if they lost a Dorian Thomas or something like that, I'm not saying he is going, but if you lost, a couple key playmakers, we might look at things a little bit differently. in terms of how they might replace those guys. So I do think, though, they are a team that will be. I think UNLV will be. Well, actually, I don't even know if UNLV will be the guy because frankly, Clandre just left. So yeah, we'll see. To kind of put it on a put a bow on it, land the plane. I think they have a shot to be preseason favorite next year for sure. I think it's between them and UNLV, and we'll see what UNLV does.
Sure would have liked to have seen how these Lobos played had Sean actually eaten his bowl game blueberries. He still owes them. Maybe we make it a spring game thing or something. I don't know. But all right, guys, we're going to let Sean go catch his flight. We are going to have a show sometime this week. I really don't know when yet. I'm going to Boise for basketball, but I'm guessing Tuesday afternoon. We'll still figure something out, but a little tentative on the scheduling going forward. But we got Lobo basketball Tuesday night in Boise. Sean's going to have plenty of recap and all that good stuff going forward. And then we have some New Mexico Bowl coverage tomorrow. Appreciate you guys for being here all year. Sean, appreciate your work all year, man.
Thank you, Grammer. Thank you, everybody, for doing these shows with us. What a weird show to end on. But no, a lot of fun with you guys all year. Love the engagement. Love talking with you guys. So hope to keep it up steady through basketball season and probably spring practice before we even know it, guys. So,
Yeah, get to work.
What?
Get to work, Sean.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you later, guys. Thanks for being on, guys.